Hey everyone, this is Sunhawk from TooMuchZerging.com, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Space Marine. It's an upcoming game, and it's rated M for mature, so just to let you know, this video will have some mature content. It is a very gory game. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine is an action game developed by Relic Entertainment and published by THQ. It's set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, which is a very dystopian, futuristic sci-fi world universe where the elements of humanity have expanded throughout the stars, but because of the number of aliens and other bad things, such as demons, that they've encountered, the entire civilization has become very stagnant and also very militaristic and just generally icky. And so you play as Captain Titus, who's a Space Marine, who's a sort of genetically enhanced super soldier. And your job is you're trying to protect this, it's called a Forge world. It's essentially an entire planet that's a bunch of factories. And so these aliens, known as the Orcs, are trying to get some of the technology and basically just loot and plunder the entire planet. And so your job is to stop them. And so here you can see I just picked up this jetpack, and it's actually really cool because what happens is you hit space, and then you just hit right click when you get your targeting reticle on some enemies, and you'll go crashing into the enemies. These guys you see firing rockets at me, those guys are orcs, and basically any of the green guys are orcs in this game, so it's pretty much all the enemies here. But yeah, that guy's actually on my team, so that was a little bit silly. But now you can see that whenever you crash land, there's actually a moment where the game slows down. And I actually really like that because it adds this sort of cinematic feel and allows you to almost sort of look around a little bit and see what's going on. Makes it very cool. So yeah, the Space Marines are sort of in the lore very, very tough and ridiculously strong. And so that's why we're sort of cutting our way through these orcs, which are these sort of brutal football hooligan aliens that really just want to loot and plunder everything and fight amongst themselves. They just want to have someone to fight. They actually don't care who it is. And so, yeah. But yeah, I really dig this jetpack, I have to say. I clicked on this mission first. There are two missions in the demo, and I clicked on the jetpack one first. I don't know why, but it ended up being very good. And so it's a lot of fun to just sort of jump around and crash into people. Here I got a big pack of them. Yeah. And so one thing that's really cool about this game is that there are certain execution moves like this. Essentially what happens is you get a ridiculously gory and graphic finishing move to an alien that's been stunned. You can see they have this sort of blue halo over them, and that means an enemy can be executed. In addition to my chainsaw, you see I also have a little bolter pistol, but I mean, why use a little weak pistol when you've got a big sword and you can smash into people? Kind of doesn't really make sense to me. You can look at all the fine detail on the character's armor. It's pretty amazing, really, I have to say. You can see the orcs have left some sort of relics of their invasion by modifying the architecture of the planet, or of the structures. One thing that I don't quite like about the jetpack is the way that it obscures your view right when you land. I guess it makes sense, but it just seems a little bit odd. Well, I'm also curious how they're going to balance the jetpack in the multiplayer part of the game, because I know that one of the three classes is essentially a jetpack guy, and the other classes, it just seems like it'd be very powerful and easy to knock other players around. We'll have to see. That's really that's a video for another time, I think. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Right there, I just used this. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you see a U that's sort of deflating with yellow, and that is your fury meter, and when it gets full, you are able to sort of unlock this superpower ability that it allows you to regenerate health and enter sort of a bullet time mode if you're firing your gun. But again, why fire your gun when you can just crash into people and crush them? I think this mission is really just a nice introduction to the jetpack because it shows you just how powerful it is and how and sort of how fun it is just to crash into large groups of enemies. So you can even use it for a little bit of mobility in limited areas. But yeah, I thought this mission was pretty fun, and I really hope that there are more jetpack missions in the full game. You'll see I'm doing sort of a series of attacks there, and that's really all the same button, and so I kind of wish that there was more variety with your melee attacks. You essentially have a stun attack and then a killing attack, and the killing attacks will chain into those more powerful ones, which is pretty cool. I do wish that there was some sort of like heavy strike though that you can use that would do additional damage, but then not necessarily have to be chained. I think that would really help make the combat a little bit more dynamic. Make it so that like certain enemies you want to use your regular attack, and certain enemies have some kind of armor that you have to use your heavy attack. So here we have it's actually the first mission in the demo, but I ended up playing it second. And you can see the Manufactorum, which is essentially the giant heart factory, and the orcs are coming in, and so we have to stop them. I didn't realize this up to this point, but you can run before I had the jetpack, and so it seemed kind of unnecessary. These soldiers here are Imperial Guardsmen, and they're sort of the regular troops rather than like the superhuman Space Marines. And so a theme in the Warhammer 40,000 universe is that they just sort of hold the line and die until the Space Marines or some other people get there to finish the job properly. And so, again, I really like this sort of cinematic style that they're using here, where right before you get into the mission, it's sort of heavy action. You get a little bit of explanation of the story, you get a little bit more understanding of the characters. And I have to say, I really just love the armor in this scene here, because you can really see all the detail, not only on the orcs in the background, like you can see he's wearing a little jacket and he's got his boots, but you can also see the Imperial Guard's armor and then the Space Marines. It's just absolutely amazing. I know there's a video out there that Relic did of the Space Marine customizer for the multiplayer component of the game, and it looks pretty amazing. There are, hundreds of different components that you can play around with, and so you can make all kinds of very cool combinations of armor. And so I'm excited about that. I think it'll be fun to sort of pick out something that looks good or looks goofy. Maybe some pink Marines, that'd be like hilarious. So here I'm sort of looking around and seeing what kind of weapons I've got. I have my standard pistol that I had before, as well as a sniper rifle that I'm using here, and a bolter and a sort of grenade launcher. And one thing that is really nice is that you can sort of aim down the sights, as I'm doing now, or you can also sort of shoot from the hip and lose a little bit of accuracy, but maintain your movement speed. And so I think that's actually, I know other games have used that, and I think that they use it really well in Space Marine so far. Water. I really love the lighting and effects in this game too, and particularly spots like this where you get to see sort of into the distance. I think they really did a good job of building the atmosphere and really making you feel like you're on this planet, that's under siege. You can see the orcs are trying to steal a cannon here to blow open the main door. It would be bad news bears for the humans. I actually really like how you can switch from melee to range attacks basically instantly. It really makes it fun because you have a moment like the one I just had before where I'm looking down the sight and I see 20 orcs barreling at me, but then right as they come at me, I can switch to my chainsaw and start messing them up, which is pretty awesome too. It also makes it fun because, as I was mentioning before, one of my sort of problems that I had when I first played the game is like, okay, I can hit the one attack button over and over again, or maybe occasionally execute somebody, but like adding the gun in there also makes the combat a little bit more varied, and I think that That'll make it so it gets less repetitive. I'm still a little bit concerned, but I think that it'll be alright. And again, Fury Power will destroy these guys. No, he's dead, it's okay. So now we have some, these are different orcs that than the ones we've seen. They're Shuda boys, and so essentially they just are orcs with very crude guns, but they're nothing we can't handle, I think. Let's see. Yeah, that wasn't quite optimal. That's okay though. Yeah, so it's interesting how I like this scene a little bit because the orcs sort of get in a group and then all charge you at once rather than charging you individually. I wonder if that's like a scripted thing or something that that they have added, where orcs will tend to sort of group together before they attack. Because I know that in the IP, that was ridiculous. I know in the IP that's how the orcs work. They sort of have to be in large groups to function properly. They have this weird like psychic field. It's weird and kind of ridiculous, but you'll see this giant guy come up and crush me here in a second. He's an orc knob. He's kind of like the boss of this little group. You'll notice that the camera placement was okay there, even though I was in the corner. It was a little bit not optimal, but it wasn't bad enough that the game was unplayable, and so that's good. As you can see, this guy has a big, big hammer, and he's tough. Also, he, yeah, those knobs are pretty tough. You can see that he basically almost killed me in 2 hits. You also notice that as I was taking damage, the screen got desaturated. I think that's a nice little cue to the player that they're dying, even if their eyes aren't on the health bar at the top of the screen. I think that works really well. So, I'm not quite sure what that yellow bit at the top is. I don't know if it's like a Fury generation or something. I haven't actually looked, and I haven't played it through any kind of tutorial, so I haven't quite figured out what it is yet. It's interesting because in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, the humans have sort of the humans have sort of stagnated, and they have this very very not thorough understanding of technology. It's all based around superstition and ritual rather than technical understanding, which is kind of interesting. And so they have these tech priests, and they're the ones that are sort of maintaining this site, as far as I can tell. But yeah, so it's interesting. I also really like the sort of Gothic architecture style that the humans have adopted. You see lots of skulls adorned, like for instance on my character's armor.
Forward. Clear out the orcs.
Now here I try to use the grenade launcher, and it doesn't work out quite as well as I would like. Mostly because the grenades don't actually detonate until you hit the reload button, which I didn't know. And so I end up getting trashed by this orc knob. Even though if you look carefully you can see he's got at least 1, maybe 2 grenades attached to him. And so it's and then he crushes me. So that was not optimal.